Good morning, JP Gus Gotzi here with the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. My buddy's the Rat Pack right behind me. And a guy that's probably certainly not a rat. He's an American hero is joining us this morning for our Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce civic engagement platform. We have many of these interviews with candidates and elected officials from across the Commonwealth of Virginia. Colonel Sergio de la Pena, and I think I pronounced that perfectly, I hope.
You did. Wonderful.
And he joins us today. He wants to be your next governor here in the Commonwealth and Virginia. So first of all, welcome to the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce and best wishes on your campaign. Tell us why you're the man, please.
Thank you, JP. I'm running for governor because I want to protect the American dream. Virginia is the cradle of the American experiment that has created the greatest good and opportunity for the world in the history of humanity. That dream is under assault. That is a dream that I've lived, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But let me just tell you what challenges we face out of Richmond. You've got a governor and a General Assembly that have planted the seeds of the destruction of that American dream with a testbed of bad ideas that are now being implemented at the national level. You look at the assaults on the First and Second Amendments, you look at assaults on life, and you look at assaults on our energy costs that are going to be very detrimental. So let me just tell you why I decided to do this. I've lived the American dream. I was born in Mexico in a house with dirt floors and no running water, no electricity. Came to the United States legally when I was 5. Started picking cotton when I was 10. I did 20 different jobs before I joined ROTC. And then later, 30 years that I spent in the Army. I did the Airborne and Ranger School training as a cadet. I did it on the first try. And that set the foundation for my Army leadership skills that served me very well for those 30 years. I fought communism, socialism, and other threats to the United States during that time. And in 2016, when other Republicans were standing on the sidelines, I jumped in and helped President Donald Trump gain greater access to the Hispanic audience, and we won by 29%. So after the elections, I was brought on to the Pentagon to be part of the transition team. And from there, President Trump tapped me to be his Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Western Hemisphere Affairs, which means I had defense policy responsibility for this half of the globe. When I left, we had the best alignment of countries in this hemisphere that we had economically and politically in the history of the United States. About a year ago, I started seeing the concerns mount in what was happening in the Commonwealth, and that's why I got involved.
Well, we're certainly proud of, we're certainly grateful for your service, 30 years. Where were you deployed?
I started out in Germany with the 8th Infantry Division, and we had our general defense positions along the Fulda Gap. And then we won the Cold War. And then later, just a recap, I started out in air defense, and then my second half was as a foreign area officer, which is military diplomacy.
Top issues people are shooting at you. I like to ask everybody, because you obviously are pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, etc. What's the first thing that shoots out of somebody's mouth at you?
Well, the first concern that everybody has, and one that I've been a part of, is election integrity. I was an election observer at Hugo Chavez's election. I tracked him before, during, and after his election, and I saw what he did and all the things that he put in place to be able to consolidate power, and that's what concerns me. So election integrity is something that we're going to have to get all Virginians involved in, because we've got to have more people that are election officials that are part of this process. We need all organizations to jump in and make sure that we get to the point that we win the election. Once we win the election, then we need to pull back some of these regulations that have been put in place to destroy voter integrity in Virginia.
Let me ask right there. I've been involved in politics since Goldwater. Literally, when I knocked on doors and put little door hangers, 5 years old or something like that, 6. There's been fraud in every election that I can ever remember. Always something kind of screwy. Do you think there was massive fraud in this last election?
What is really sad about this last election is within Virginia, we changed the electoral laws to accommodate this COVID environment, and they were crammed through, and there was a series of machinations that occurred that allowed the changes to happen. So we're never going to know the full extent of the fraud that occurred.
How about what some other positions? that people are shooting out at you. Obviously, COVID's on a lot of people's minds. Do you
Absolutely.
think that has been handled okay by Governor Northam, or has it been not so good?
Absolutely not. We were 50th in COVID response when this thing kicked off. I think we moved up just a little bit, but you know, we have the greatest brain trust of talented people in the country, and to think that you can't set up a distribution system using the private sector and using experts in distribution management to be able to provide vaccines for everybody who desires them is ludicrous. So I don't think we had a good response. But the first thing we need to do is just open everything up and then put in place the appropriate safeguards to make sure that people are protected.
Schools
need to be open. There's no reason for schools to be open. Do you read the COVID dashboard on a daily basis as I do?
No.
If you look at it, you know how many deaths there's been between 0 to 29 years? 0 since this thing started. And if you look at where the deaths are occurring, 80 plus is 50% of the deaths. 70 to 79 is 25%. 60 to 69 is 15%. So we know where the vulnerable populations are. Now, obviously, we have to put the appropriate safeguards in place to be able to open up, but the schools should be open. We need to get teachers teaching and students learning because that's what they want. There are other impediments that need to get out of the way, and the teachers' unions are part of that.
What are some of the other things people were telling you?
Well, there's a lot of concern about the Second Amendment. We keep nibbling away at the Second Amendment. You just seen what happened. As soon as we have a mass shooting incident and we start blaming the white guy that wasn't quite so white, and you use that as a pretext to take away guns, it's ridiculous. Long guns hardly ever, well, they do result in some deaths, but if you look at the way that the Democrats are immediately ready to attack, it's ridiculous. And that's what they want to do, is take away our gun rights. That's what Chavez did. As soon as he got into office, the first thing he did is take away the guns, because that's a check on tyranny.
It is amazing how they jumped so quickly, right? That, like, as the media always does, it's a white supremacist, some guy, middle-aged or young. And
well, based on the lighting that you have on me, I'm probably a white supremacist myself.
Of course you are, with a little olive skin in you, you know, looking good. No wonder. Vanessa, his lovely wife, and they got 5 children. He wants to be your next governor. His name's Colonel Sergio de la Pena, and the election is coming up. It'll be at a convention, folks,
right,
on May 8th at one of 37 or 38 satellite locations at all the major cities throughout the Commonwealth. I think it's probably going to be from 9 to 4, something like that. Just, you can go in and vote, and it's a staggered voting. I forget the name of it, but you vote for first, second, third, fourth.
Rank order.
Rank order. There you go. I was chairman of the party, and I should remember those things. Long time ago. Let me ask you a couple things that are big on our mind for our chamber. We're very nonpartisan, but marijuana. The writing's on the wall that within 10 years, if not less, that's probably going to be recreationally legalized throughout the whole country. What's your thoughts on it?
It's a sad statement of affairs. It is what it is. The people who make that decision. My personal belief is that we don't need to dumb people down any further. We don't need to put any further hazards on driving and safety of our citizens. That said, this has a trend line that is difficult to stop. My personal feeling is that I'm not a fan, but the people have to speak, and they have to make that determination.
Got it. So the bottom line is, if it seems like the majority of Virginians would like to see it legalized, you certainly wouldn't want to hinder their voice.
Correct. I'm not going to be part of that crowd, but it is a people's choice.
Felony voting rights. The governor and the headline of the paper just last week, and one of them was like 600 and some thousand felons. He's restoring their voting rights. Your thoughts?
I don't think that voting rights should be given to felons. I think that we need to have voter integrity. I think that you need to have verifiable a verifiable way to show that you're a legal voter. I don't think we should weaken our laws to the extent that illegal aliens can vote. And I know of this because I've talked to people that have seen it happen. So this is a concern of mine. You know, you have to use your ID card to just get into a building, but yet we can just let people arbitrarily say, yeah, I'm good for it, so just go ahead and let me vote. That's not the way that this country was designed. When you allow people to vote in all the benefits that they want, it stops being a democracy. And then you end up watering down everything. And when you look at the immigration crisis that we have, that's further evidence of what this can lead to.
Go ahead with your thoughts on the immigration. The dreamers, the people that are here, the dreamers, so to speak, should they have a way to legal citizenship? Would you support that?
I think what we need to do is, look, first of all, the governors don't have a lot of say in what the laws are. That's something that has to be done in Congress, and Congress needs to do it. I'm an immigrant. I came here legally, and it took a long time because there were processes put in place, and we followed the law back in those days. Now we have laws, and we don't follow them. We need to go back to following laws. We need to get our Congress to sit together and come up with a viable solution that allows us to go back to rule of law. We're becoming an embarrassment to the rest of the world. We espouse rule of law, and yet we don't practice it. So what we need to do is Congress has to work. We need to stop doing this through executive orders. And there's ways, and both parties are willing to talk about it. It's just that thus far, we've not been able to do that.
As we only have a minute or so here to wrap up, Colonel Sergio de la Pena wants to be our next governor. Just in a minute there, summarize why you're the man for the job and any closing thoughts.
Thank you very much. The reason that I'm the man for the job is because if you listen to the way my life experience is fairly long, and I'm the only candidate that can win in Northern Virginia. We keep putting up candidates that keep on losing. We're sending the wrong candidates. I can reach that immigrant population. I can reach that military population because I am a soldier. I am an immigrant. I was a federal employee and know what federal employees are going through, but I can also reach to Southern, Eastern, and Western Virginia because I know what it is to work on farms. I know what it is to work on tractors. I know what it is to work on drilling rigs. I know what it is to weld. I know how to do all of those things, and I can relate to people. I had a great conversation with a couple of folks at a building yesterday that were draining a ditch so that the water could stop from getting on the sidewalks, and they spoke Spanish, and they said that they'll vote for me. It was just a brief conversation. One guy was born in Greece and raised in Costa Rica, so this is the kind of outreach I can do. This is what I've done all my life. I've reached out to ministers of defense, presidents, and everybody across the board. I know what it is not to speak English at all and come to this wonderful country and live the American dream. And the uniqueness of my dream is that I'm not unique because I'm sure that you have your American dream story.
Absolutely. You certainly have a good one. If you get into the governor's mansion, I hope you won't forget about me. Invite me over for some ribs, or maybe Vanessa makes some good Mexican food. I used to live in El Paso and Albuquerque, and so we certainly had a lot of it. He's Sergio de la Pena. He wants to be the next governor. The conventions are on May 8th. You have to sign up to be a delegate, though. You can't just show up and vote. You have to fill out a form, and there's deadlines for that. I think in Hampton it was yesterday or the day before, but check your local cities. That's correct. We'll see you again next time. We want you to be a member of our chamber, so come join us. I'll come out to your place of business, film a infomercial live that you can use on your own website. So go to coastalvachamber.com. As always, thank our chairman, Gary Byler, our executive director, Ron Villanueva. I'm your host, JP Gusgazzi. We'll see you next time on the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce.
JP, can I put a pitch for my website? It's sergiodelapena.com, sergiodelapena.com. Please support me. Thank you very much.
There you got it. He filled in the last word. We'll see you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.